Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a DIY project. I recently took a trip to Wimberley and I was really inspired by furniture pieces that I saw when I was in the shops there. I really wanted a kitchen island, something similar to what you see right here in this photo, but I didn't want to spend the money in case I didn't like it in my kitchen because my kitchen's so narrow. So I was thinking one day, I remember I had this piece in one of my sheds, and it was just holding the kids' art projects. And this was actually something my dad built when he was in woodshop in high school. And it happened to be the perfect size for the space. So I thought, what about turning this into a kitchen island? And I thought it would be really cool because it has meaning behind it. Not to mention that it was going to save me money because I already had the furniture and I had all the supplies I needed on hand to turn this into the kitchen island that I wanted to turn it into. So before I started sanding, I did give it a quick little wipe down, and then I just got really busy and crazy sanding. I used 80 grit sandpaper to remove all the paint off the top of this piece. And so it was kind of time consuming, a lot more time consuming than I thought it was going to be, but I really wanted the top to match my kitchen table, and so I just took the time to remove as much of the paint off the top as I possibly could. I also smoothed out the corners so there weren't any harsh edges. So as I said before, I used the 80 sandpaper to really take off the paint off the top of the furniture, and then I used the 120 to just go through and smooth everything out. I also used it on the entire piece to give a roughness for the paint to stick onto. And so here I am just giving it a nice good finishing sand. I left some of the paint on the top. I thought it would give a cool effect whenever I went to go and stain the top. Also, it was really hard to get that paint off, and so I was like, I'm done, let's try this. So again, I'm just giving the entire piece a good little light sanding just so it gives something for the paint to stick onto. I kind of wish I would have used a primer before I started painting over the blue because I felt like I had to do extra steps in painting, but it still came out really good. Once I was done with that, I gave it a really good spray with some cleaner and just wiped everything down really good, getting all the dust and dirt off. Like I said, this was in a shed, and so I wanted to get as much of that dirt and grime off as possible. And so here I am just cleaning everything up and getting it ready to apply paint. So I had this leftover stain from when I did a project on my kitchen table, and so I used the same stain to stain the top of this piece. As you can see, I did leave some of the paint on there, and it just kind of gave it a kind of like a rustic or effect, and I just went through and put some the stain smoothly and evenly over the top. Here's a tip though, this is older stain, so there are some like bumps or lumps in it. It didn't really affect this piece, but you need to be really careful when you're doing that. So as you can see, this is what it looks like after I stained it. I went through and made sure like there's like little spots where it's heavier in other spots than others. So I just went through and evened out the stain. So I was waiting for that to dry. I went ahead and got the stuff together to mix and make my own at-home chalk paint. You're gonna need some polyplaster and some old measuring cups. I ended up not using the paint tray right there, but in case you want to, you could have a paint tray, an old paintbrush. You don't need a fancy paintbrush. I used room temperature water. It does say use hot water in the instructions. It just depends on the weather. Like on colder days, I feel like it doesn't need to be hot, and like it depends on your climate and the humidity and stuff like that, so you can kind of play around with that recipe. I had an old container that I mixed everything in, and it's airtight And so I went ahead and mixed the plaster and the room temperature water together, and I put the lid on top and I gave it a really good shake to make sure everything dissolved. After that, then I went ahead and added the paint. This was older paint. There were some clumps. I know some people are going to say you shouldn't use old paint. I didn't really have any problems with it, and I just poured that in to the container and gave it a good shake. Now, like I said, depending on the weather, you might have to play with this recipe a little bit. It was really humid, really hot, and so the warm water I felt made it a little bit watery consistency. So I added a little bit more polyplaster and paint until it got to the consistency that I liked. And just like with any project, I used a polyacrylic by Wax to seal the entire project, especially since this was chalk paint. You're going to want to use a seal on top of it, and this just protects the project and allows you to wipe it up anytime you spill anything. And like I said, it's very durable. I used it on my table in my kitchen, and I have no issues with it. So I really love protecting my projects with this polyacrylic.
So here's a look at the final project. It fits perfectly in the space that I wanted it for. On the middle rack I have like the kids' snacks and some cutting boards. And I really love how this just fits into the space. It's the perfect size without overwhelming and taking over the space. The recipe for the chalkboard paint, I forgot to mention earlier, will be linked down below. I found it on Pinterest. Like I said, it's a recipe that you can kind of play around with and kind of make it your own. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you would like to see more videos like this, please comment down below, and have a great day. Thank you.